Thank you, Anjali, for the elaborate introduction. Good afternoon to everyone. I thank ICSI IPA for giving Accomplir me and Zeenath an opportunity to speak on this very pertinent and a burning topic on how to use AI to strengthen the insolvency proceedings in India. I also thank all the participants for making the time to be here today and extend a very warm welcome to them. Over the next couple of hours, we are going to spend time exploring a subject that sits right at the intersection of two very powerful forces: India's insolvency framework and the rise of artificial intelligence. Now, insolvency in India, or for that matter, anywhere in the world, is not just a technical or a legal matter. It is a matter which touches the entire ecosystem. It touches the banks, investors, employees, the promoters, and even the regulators. So, when this process works well, it builds trust. It encourages it encourages entrepreneurship, gives a genuine second chance to the businesses, and it aids in redeploying the unproductive assets back into the system for a productive use, thereby aiding the economy. But when it doesn't work well, it has wide ramifications and it has crippling costs which extend far and wide. Some of the key criticisms of IBC have been delays in the process, falling recoveries, stagnating and falling recoveries, or increased haircuts, capacity constraints leading to again procedural delays, and eroding trust in the overall IBC ecosystem. These are some of the hard facts. IBC was designed with an initial objective of resolving a stressed asset within 180 days and extendable to 330 days. Yet, the average CIRP proceedings exceed 400 days. That is the case for liquidation also. The process extends far beyond what has been stipulated. The recoveries, which were initially 43% in the first year, have come down to less than a third of the value. So, a natural question would be, how do we make this process faster, more reliable, and more transparent? That is where artificial intelligence comes in. It can aid the process by making it much faster, reliable, and transparent. But let me clarify at the outset: artificial intelligence is no silver bullet. It cannot turn a stressed asset into a performing one or a healthy one. It cannot replace the commercial wisdom of the creditors or the judgment of the courts. What it can do, if we apply it carefully, responsibly, and effectively, is that it will reduce the frictions in the process which are currently slowing us down. It will cut down on the manual errors. It will bring hidden patterns to light and create transparency and will strengthen the trust in the system which has been fast eroding. A common way to look at AI is to look at it as a demon which is taking away jobs, and as an intruder which has come in to rob us of the good things. However, I think a better way or a clearer way to look at AI is to look at it like an assistant or as a tool, and in some ways like a superhero or a digital superhero which can analyze financial statements, claim documents. It won't take a long breaks, won't take even tea breaks, and it won't argue vociferously with you, somebody who never sleeps, and it would analyze the and point out inconsistencies which a human eye may miss. An insolvency professional is burdened with numerous responsibilities, and at times, the core objective or the core thing which an insolvency professional has to deliver is lost under this heap of responsibilities. Using AI as a tool, and when it is used rightly, will enable an insolvency professional to offload this heavy lifting to artificial intelligence, and will enable him to focus his energies towards the tasks which truly matter, which is taking decisions and aiding the insolvency process and the creditors for a better and faster process and higher recoveries. In all of this, the insolvency professional remains at the core, and he is firmly in charge. But he has new tools at his disposal to deliver effectively. That's the spirit in which I want us to explore this topic today. Over the next 2 hours, this is how we'll proceed. We'll first begin with a quick tour on how AI is being already used in India, not just in theory, but in practice, in our courts, in legal research, in financial utilities, in auctions. Then we'll move to the key critical considerations, which are the guardrails that matter if AI has to be taken seriously. These critical considerations are confidentiality, accountability, accuracy, fairness, security, and of course, regulatory acceptance. Once we have laid this foundation, we'll take step by step. We'll walk step by step through the corporate insolvency process, right from the pre-admission petition to admission, the entire process of CRP, inviting the claims, inviting for the resolution plans, approval of the resolution plans, and then the implementation and post approval monitoring. We will see how AI can support at each stage. After that, we'll do the same for liquidation. The liquidation process, like having the asset registration, registers, creating liquidation estate, valuation, conducting auctions, distribution, and dissolution. And we'll see how AI can help at each stage. Then, towards the end, we will see how AI is currently being used in other geographies to aid insolvency and how we can derive learnings from that. Then we circle back to India with a proposed roadmap on what we can realistically achieve in the short term, what lies in the medium term, and what we should aim for in the long term. At this stage, let me invite my colleague Zeenath, who is an AI expert, to take us through further details. Zeenath has been spearheading the AI pilots at our firm, and she has been successfully been able to create a lot of value in terms of in terms of increasing the efficacy of our deliverables. Zeenath, over to you.
Thanks, Ashish. Thank you for the kind introduction as well. So, the crux of today's presentation is going to revolve around what can we do in CIRP and liquidation to make the liquidator or the RP's job easier, faster, and more accurate. But before we get into that, a very important question to be answered is, can we use AI? Can we trust it? Can we believe in it? So I think a great way to start there is to see how India is currently using AI. So in the current context in India, AI is being used widely by various forums. Um, to start with, of course, Ashish has covered these things, but Supreme Court is involved in a lot of AI pilots. Specifically, let us in Supreme Court, Supreme Court has piloted live AI transcription and constitution bench hearings. That means as arguments unfold, a live AI system produces transcripts in real time. It's happening today, so this isn't science fiction. They've also tested AI translation. Judgments have been made available in Indian languages through a system called SUVAS that makes judgments more accessible, not just to lawyers in Delhi, but to professionals, creditors, and all stakeholders across the spectrum. And that while the apex body is doing its best to take this forward, in legal research, AI has found amazing applications. Platforms like SEC Online and Manupatra have started embedding AI tools for precedent mapping, drafting assistance, research suggestions. Lawyers spend a great deal of time researching precedents in order to put forward the best case. And sometimes insolvency professionals themselves also have um, a, a compelling need to understand what case laws are out there that can help them speak about that specific issue or specific problem that they're having, especially in case of where two laws are intersecting, whether it is Income Tax Act and Companies Act, Income Tax Act and Insolvency Act. So it is in these cases where it will make a lot of sense for us to rely on AI to make that research a bit easier. Even the Bar Council of Delhi has piloted an AI-enabled e-research library, giving lawyers access to AI tools as well. So AI just makes the search easier. It is the equivalent of, a kid asking the mother, no, where is something that the kid is unable to find. The mother always knows exactly where to find it. So AI is that powerful. It's like a search on steroids, especially for the legal research bit. What does this tell us? It tells us that the ecosystem is warming up. Courts, bar associations, research platforms are experimenting. The ground is being prepared. And this is great news for the IP fraternity as a whole, because now we know that it's admissible, AI is doable, and that we should leverage it. So, moving on, uh, we spoke of the Delhi High Court things as well. NESL, now this is a place where AI has a lot of potential. Now, this is not being done yet, but it has a repository of authenticated debt records under IBC. And since the new regulations require information utility form to be filed along with Section 9 as well, this means that all debt is going to be with them. Now, imagine how easy it would be for AI to integrate with NESL and then authenticate claims on its own instead of there being very long, arduous claim verification process. In case of assets which are quite large and complex, claim verification itself could take months after months. Plus, claim forms are always updated. It's it's a task that does not require a lot of judgment, but it is a task that requires determination. As our courts have told us over and over again, that the RP does not adjudicate but just determines a claim. So, and another place where AI could really easily plug in is the e-auction system of IBBI. E-auctions are now supposed to be standardized by IBBI. Imagine an AI overlay on it, which can predict the bid analytics, the collusion tactics that are used. And these are not thought up scenarios. These are being used outside of India. So India is in a really good position to start integrating all of it. And India will integrate all of it. So, as such, should we be using AI? The answer to that seems to be a good, resounding yes. So, some Indian law journals have proposed combining AI and blockchain for greater transparency in insolvency. But there is a thing that we need to consider within the Indian context, and that is that the records in India, the bookkeeping in India has not yet kept pace with the digitization that is happening on the sidelines. While the major companies with large debt exposures have been completely digitized, a huge chunk of Indian bookkeeping is quite unorganized. And for AI to be trained on this data, to understand this data, it's a long way away for us to completely integrate into it. But that does not mean that there are no chances of integrating AI into our everyday insolvencies to make our lives easier. But before we get to how to use AI, there are a lot of considerations. Because if we want AI to move from pilot to mainstream in insolvency, we need to confront the risks head on. Basic risks that even Ashish covered initially was confidentiality. accuracy, accountability. Any one of us who has actually gone to ChatGPT and typed up something knows that sometimes the kind of answers it gives are absolutely useless and we really cannot use them in a professional context. How do we head on collide with those challenges? These are not side questions, they are central to our discussion because without clear answers, neither creditors nor courts will trust AI outputs. So let's spend some time on key considerations. The first consideration for us is confidentiality and privacy. So while we've covered this, so India is quite sensitive when it comes to its insolvency data. A lot of the data is public thanks to IPBI. A lot of that data is available for public, but a lot of the data is also very confidential. For instance, your valuation reports are confidential, credited exposures are confidential, business plans are confidential. If AI tool is processing the data, where is it stored? Who else has access? These are very relevant questions. Where is the data stored? We now have the DPDP Act. That law makes it clear. Personal data must be processed with purpose limitation, storage limitation, and with consent. But insolvency adds one more layer on it. Company secrets, creditor strategies, sometimes even information that could move markets, unpublished price sensitive information. So, question is, if RP uses an AI tool to reconcile claims, how do we ensure that the tool isn't quietly training itself on that data and reusing it elsewhere? That's not just a technical risk, it's a legal one. The principle is very clear. AI in insolvency must work inside secure walls, closed systems, not open playgrounds. So the fact that we have our Sarvam, our own indigenous models are being built as we speak. So hopefully, while India's indigenous models are built with the same intention that our data should stay with us, hopefully we are moving closer to this goal of data protection. The second consideration for us is accuracy and reliability. AI is quite powerful, but it has this tendency to hallucinate. We've all heard of it. AI produces something that looks convincing, but is simply wrong. Something simple as it can sometimes convince you that 200 grams equals to 1 kilogram, something so obviously wrong, but it will develop really large calculations to say that it's right. So now imagine that in an insolvency case, a misstated claim, a misread regulation, a fabricated precedent. Sometimes it may say that, oh, Delhi High Court in this matter said this is going to happen, so you're okay, you're good, you should be able to do this. So it's very embarrassing, but it could also derail a case, mislead a committee, or even open a professional to liability, something that IPs are very, very wary of. So,
Zeenath, let me just come in here. Interestingly, there were certain cases where AI through fabricated certain cases, case laws, and threw it up, and that found a mention in the judgments. So that is the risk probably that you are talking about.
yeah, correct. That's right, because it seems so convincing that, somebody who speaks with a lot of, it happens in our professional lives as well, right? Somebody who speaks with a lot of confidence sometimes gets away with not having a lot of stuff and a lot of content within them. So, same principle applies with AI as well. So, it should come with verification layers. Basically, think of it like a junior associate drafting a note. You'd never send it straight to the client without checking. The same applies here. AI outputs must always be reviewed and certified by a human professional to make sure that the data integrity is there. And also the logic that it is applying to arrive at it should also be checked. Hopefully, the kind of AI tools that we use for insolvency will be trained enough, will be advanced enough that this doesn't occur. But it's a possibility that is just built into the system that we should be aware of. And most importantly, if AI makes a mistake, the liability doesn't disappear into the cloud. It rests with the professional who used it. That's why in this domain, AI plus human is the only viable formula because the risk is very, very real and very, very um, financial as well. The third consideration is explainability and accountability. Now, this flows from the second consideration itself. But what are we trying to say? We're trying to say it should be understandable by design. If AI is saying something like, oh, the possibility of 100 crores as the reserve price for this asset is too high, are we able to explain how the AI arrived at it? So, one of the biggest criticisms of AI models, especially large ones, is that they are black boxes. They give you an answer, but not always the reasoning. In insolvency, that's unacceptable. Creditors need to know why a plan was rated feasible. Courts need to know why certain transactions were flagged as avoidance. Stakeholders need to see the chain of reasoning. This means any AI tool we use must offer audit trails, something that we're all very aware of. Not just answers, but why this answer. That's explainability. Without it, AI won't gain judicial acceptance, and it shouldn't as well. Until we're able to say that output Y has been derived by putting inputs X, A, B, C, D, and a certain relationship has been established, which is in this form, output Y will not gain that sort of credibility. And it really shouldn't as well. The fourth consideration we should talk about is again something that's very unique to AI, that's bias and fairness. And something that a lot of people have experienced, and I have as well, is when you tell AI or a doctor is going to perform a surgery, the AI will assume that the doctor is a male. Or these kind of biases are built into it because it is trained on material that humans have provided. So those biases have to be made very aware of. AI learns from data, right? So if the data is biased, AI will be biased. So sometimes it may undervalue the nuances of MSME cases, or if it's trained on global precedents, it may not capture the specific realities of Indian promoter behavior. Bias in insolvency will not just be a technical glitch, but it could mean unfair treatment of certain creditors or skewed evaluations of plans. So, fairness must be built in. That means the training data that we give it should be very diverse. Bias audits should be conducted, continuous monitoring should be done. And I mean, at this point, it's very natural to wonder as an insolvency professional, why will I worry about all this? I'm going to hope that the software that I'm going to use for this is worth it, or it takes care of all of it. And and you'd be right in saying that, because as an insolvency professional, if you're able to say that, okay, does it, deal with fairness and bias? Does it deal with accuracy? Does it deal with confidentiality? If you're able to ensure these things are there, then you'd not be amiss in using that software, because at the end of the day, the liability doesn't rest with the software provider or the software, but with the insolvency professional himself or herself. So this is where it becomes important to understand why AI use comes with so many considerations. The fifth risk is something that has to come when we're talking about technology, that is security and cyber risks. And somehow in the AI context, this is one of the most under discussed risks. Insolvency cases are juicy targets. They involve distressed companies, contested claims, valuable assets. Imagine the damage if ransomware hit an AI system managing an e-auction. E-auction where lakhs, crores of rupees is put on stake. Or if a malicious actor manipulated outputs to favor one bidder. So security is not optional. AI adoption must be paired with strong cyber safeguards, encryption, access controls, incident response. Otherwise, we risk trading one set of problems for another. So security is an absolute must. And the last, and maybe broadly the last consideration, is regulatory and judicial acceptance. We could build the best AI software for insolvency professionals, but unless the courts accept its viability, it will not work for us. Specifically, let's speak of Evidence Act of India. If professionals are willing, will courts and tribunals accept it? AI outputs must be backed by proper certification. Judges must be comfortable that what they're seeing is not just a machine's guesswork, but a reliable, verifiable record. This is where institutional readiness comes in. RPs, NCLT, creditors, all will need training, and just dropping tools in the process will not make adoption happen. It will require a cultural change. But coming back to the Indian Evidence Act, AI assisted filings are still classified as electronic records. The Act still doesn't recognize AI assisted filing as a separate cornerstone. So, to be admitted, such records must satisfy authenticity, certification, non tampering, and reliable source. So, a human oversight or a audit trail of how it worked out that specific output will help satisfy evidentiary standards. And if the courts feel like the AI output lacks origin or traceability, or if it is unduly altered, then the courts may choose not to accept that. Secondly, when we spoke of institutional readiness, Supreme Court has set the precedent with its AI pilots, and and I think the fact that IBBI recently amended the regulations, the Fifth Amendment, where it requires uh, continuous updating of IM, a push is a push towards that direction, because with AI, that sort of dynamic updating is possible. And of course, thanks to ICSI, IIP, that professional body guidance has always been there and is a cornerstone for making this sort of accepting, this sort of change happen within the whole system. So those are our primary considerations when dealing with AI, and any software that claims to make your job easier, that claims to make it better, needs to pass at least these 4, 5, 6 considerations, so it is of reasonable quality. And still, the risk and the liability on the RP remains. Next, we actually come down to stage by stage. How does AI integrate into every stage of CIRP? Let's get practical. Let's walk through the CIRP process step by step and ask, how can AI help here? So before the journey even begins, let's look at just the admission. A financial creditor or an operational creditor files a petition. Today, petitions are often rejected or delayed because of missing documents, formatting errors, procedural lapses. In fact, it's so common for your lawyer to come back to you and say that, oh, there are defects, we're curing the defects. So here's where AI can serve as a first line of review. Think of it as a pre-screening paralegal. It can check for these Yes, it can check for these errors, it can check for these missing documents, and it can check if the affidavits are in the right format, whether timelines are observed. So there are cases where NCLT has rejected an admission because Section 8 demand notice was not served properly. It is absolutely remiss on the part of the uh, people who are filing the application that after so many years of the law being in force, a very small technicality like that is missed, but it's not unheard of, because human error is exactly that. It tends to miss some of the smallest things. This is where AI can integrate and make that thing much better. So this saves time for NCLT, improves the credibility of the process, and basically AI is not deciding admission at all. It's just making sure that the paperwork is clean so the tribunal can focus on the substance. Second stage is, once admitted, we come to the public announcement stage. This is a stage where the IRP has tons of duties, is saddled with a lot of information, needs to make sense of that information, need to collate, cull, and make that information readable and deliverable to a bunch of stakeholders. So this is where real complexity starts. Claims comes from everywhere. They come in different formats, sometimes contradictory, sometimes inflated. Some Traditionally, an RP and their team wade through thousands of pages, but AI can accelerate this. Using natural language processing, it can extract claim amounts, cross-verify them against NSCL records, and flag inconsistencies. Imagine being able to reconcile hundreds of claims in hours rather than weeks. That's a real boost. Now, speaking of claims, this is where AI can become very, very powerful. Most of the claim documents that we get are scanned documents. So in case of scanned documents, if you've ever tried searching for a certain word in a scanned document on PDF, you would have noticed that PDF says no words found with that characters or no words found with the, that those definitions. That's because PDF cannot read scanned documents. For that, you need an additional functionality, which is called optical character recognition. AI can help with that too. Pulling data out of scanned documents, think of machine learning models detecting duplicate claims or spotting signs of fabrication. Imagine you dump all of that claim data into the system, it processes it all of it and brings out this clean Excel with creditor name, amount claimed, service rendered, date of invoice, date when due, everything. So RP remains in charge, but instead of being buried in paper, they get a dashboard which claims are clean, which need scrutiny, which might be fraudulent. So this first level of work, which is currently dependent on maybe uh, thousands of people right now doing it across many, many insolvencies, could get more accurate with software. Third step is constitution of committee of creditors. Here as well, uh, having a visual dashboard of admitted versus disputed claims will, supported by such a strong, robust AI layer, will really help avoid a lot of litigation, will help COC constitution, and will also help the RP file their preliminary reports and their first progress report with NCLT. So AI can also automate that math, right? That you can make that scenario analysis happen. So if I admit this creditor's claim, how will the voting percentages shift? So the difference between 66% vote versus a 50% voting item can really be simulated in real life by AI, just with basic software. So this makes COC formation faster, less contentious. Then we come to conducting the actual COC meetings and making information memorandums. Something as simple as uh, the minutes of meeting, then when we go in for a meeting, that can be, even today, AI transcribes the meeting notes live. Even today, imagine we have a 48-hour window before we can share the minutes with the COC, and usually it's a very long process that takes up at least 5-6 man hours. Imagine that being condensed to just half an hour of just review. So that's the kind of functionality that AI provides. Not just minutes of meeting, but the notice, the list of resolutions, the agenda that we send to the COC before meetings, all of that, right from drafting to actual emailing, can be automated. So you do not need to rely on people for that. And on top of everything, the most amazing thing that AI can automate for you is timelines. AI can keep track of all timelines, not just the timelines of the process you're handling, but the timelines of the compliances you're supposed to do with IBBI, you're supposed to do with IPA. All of that can become just one consolidated dashboard where the IP just has to make sure that things are done. The IP doesn't have to burden himself or herself with multiple clashing timelines, because we know that the compliance burden on an IP is immense. Moving on to information memorandum, AI also allows for auto assembly of information memorandum. The IP has gotten multiple dumps of information, claims, financial statements, operational status of the company, litigation list. All of that has come from multiple different sources. Information memorandum is a defined document with a certain template. Imagine putting these two together and asking AI to make a document. AI can do that within 10 to 15 minutes. Information memorandum preparation usually takes us anywhere within from like 4 days to a week. So the amount of time that gets condensed in an already time crunched process is, the value of that is amazing. The AI can also pull data from MCA filings, NESL, credit rating reports, litigation databases. We don't really have to rely primarily on what the management is giving us in the litigation list, but also simultaneously carry out a check to see if that is actually the final litigation list that's there, or if there is an update to that as well. So RP can then review, edit, and then certify. The result is a faster, more accurate IAM that bidders can trust. Of course, this is assuming that our AI is not is bereft of any hallucinations, of any biases. Then we come to the most exciting part of the insolvency process, where we actually call for bids and we look for investors. So in most of the processes, investment banks are engaged to make sure that the reach out is far and wide. And this is a huge cost component to the COC. The company is already stressed. COC is probably funding this off their own pocket, and but it is seen as a necessary service to engage. It is possible that this engagement can be shorter or can be much more constrained if AI is used properly. If AI is used properly, AI can search globally for investors that have repeatedly invested in stressed assets, strategic players that are active in this space, and create a long list of potential buyers who might be interested. And it can then go a step ahead and also pull out the contacts and make the reach out better. So while Form G is published in the newspapers as a part of our compliance, as a part of our formality, and it does elicit some interest, this will expand the universe by a lot more and will lead to value maximization for the creditors.
Zeenath,
Second,
on the bidder process, right? What we are doing in M&A in terms
correct,
of expanding the mapping, using AI as a tool to guide us on the likely targets, if it is a buy side mandate or if it is a sell side mandate, then finding more and more investors, bidders using different logics. So all the you can probably cite a live example on how you have worked on something, though it's in the initial stages, it's been delivering very good results.
correct,
So maybe you can touch upon that.
correct. So we also like do mid-market M&A, and that's one of our major offerings as a compler. So internally, we have developed a lot of AI tools to help us with this. And very recently, I was able to make a minimum viable product, an MVP of sorts, where just by entering the name of a target or a name of an acquirer, we're able to see what sort of companies could be interested, what will be the strategic rationale for them to invest in this company. And the evidence for that is not hallucination. The evidence for that is from their own interviews, from their news reports, from their investor transcripts. So these are sources which are extremely high quality. These are sources which are also very recent. So any evidence that you get from them is immediately actionable. So, which is why mapping as a activity is not really done with a lot of um, enthusiasm in CIRP as it is done in traditional M&A, but it is something that really expands the universe and maximizes value. And since it's not possible to do a lot in such a short time, it's the perfect application of artificial intelligence to automate a task that otherwise would have been done in a substandard or in a reduced fashion. So the second part is, of course, the Section 29A screening. Initially, a Section 29A screening was done to make sure that bidders are actually 29A eligible, while the courts allow the COC and the RP to rely on the affidavits given by the bidders. Still, in multiple cases, COC and the RP do prefer that a 29A check is done. Now, 29A check is mostly performed with public sources only. There are very few subscribed databases that are used. So at least the preliminary 29A check can very easily be performed with AI. And if it is coupled with a subscribed database, nothing like it. It's just hardly maybe an 1 hour job, something that I remember firms charging anywhere between 2,000 to 5,000 rupees per entity, and you would have to probably do it across 200 to 50 entities to get to a reasonable place of comfort about it. So that's another space that AI can plug into a CIRP. The other space where AI can plug into CIRP is the due diligence in the virtual data rooms as well. So virtual data rooms are large dumps of data. And so many times it must have happened that you've uploaded a certain document, but you do get repeated queries from bidders asking for that very same document, which is very evidently on the VDR, but is not searchable, is not findable. Even though some VDRs do offer search functionality, adding an AI layer on top of it will make sure that no matter what the search term is, let's say you've uploaded land records. So instead of calling them land records, the title is something like XYZ ABCD. But AI can understand that, okay, this person is searching for land records. It will go, it will do OCR, it will search the scan documents, take out land records, look for signs, and say that, okay, land records are here. It reduces the time it takes for the RP and the liquidators team to coordinate. It improves the access to bidders. It improves the trust on the data that is shared as well. Second, any IM updates that are done, AI will be able to say very clearly what the updates are. You don't really need to do the track change. You don't need to do area-wise tracking of what updates have been done. Version control is something that AI can take to a very different level. So this is a space where AI definitely should be used just for how functional it is going to make this space. After this, we come to the final stages of a plan, resolution plan evaluation. Now, this is a space where AI cannot and should not decide which plan is the best, but it can support evaluation. So our evaluation matrix is not, apart from the qualitative part, the quantitative part is pretty straightforward. How much is upfront, how much is deferred, how much equity upside is being offered, if anything is offered to OCs, all of that is pretty quantitative. Why should a human sit and waste precious hours over it? It can run the financial models as well. If we are saying that the bidder is going to pay in 3 years, it can look at the cash flows in the next 3 years and see if that kind of a repayment with internal accruals is possible or not. It can also do multiple debt restructuring scenarios. If a bidder 1 has offered structure A, bidder 2 has offered structure B, it can compare these two structures, run sensitivity analysis. It can benchmark plan assumptions against industry data as well. If the plan says that, oh, the plant is going to run at a PLF of 80%, it can say that, okay, you know what, that data doesn't seem right because industry average is this much, you may want to look at it. It can also highlight risks. For example, if a plan assumes unrealistically high market growth, it can say that, okay, the CAGR for this sector is at 8%, you cannot possibly be looking at 13%. So think of AI here as a financial analyst working around the clock. It gives the COC better inputs so their commercial wisdom is better informed. So this is a space where AI really blooms into itself and starts behaving like an analyst, like an assistant who's extremely qualified. And then we come to actual COC evaluation and voting. Basically here, AI can do recovery modeling. Basically, it can tell COC, okay, your liquidation value is 100. The plan you've gotten is for 90. But if the company were to go under liquidation, you'd have to get it valued again. And given the current market scenario, maybe the valuation under liquidation is going to be much, much lower. So these are your success rates under multiple scenarios. And having a trustworthy AI model of this sort would make that decision much more faster and would also remove the risk of individual decision maker as well, which is something that banks and other creditors are always faced with. Then we come to another place, which is fraud detection. So look back period 2 years or as many years as you can in Section 66 filings. In look back period as well, identifying those anomalies. Now, this is basic audit functionality of AI and making sure that any anomaly is detected or not is something that is the function of AI if it is built for audit. So this is not exactly AI built for insolvency, but rather AI built for audit. But if it can integrate into insolvency, it would make your make your mandatory disclosures and your compliances much better. Then we come to the post-monitoring approval as well. Basically, when there are multiple covenants, there are multiple milestones in a plan. To extract all of them and to tell you that, and most of those milestones are also tied to one or the other act, this income tax act, some of them are revenue act, some of them are in a different jurisdiction. So it can tell you exactly what the requirement is, which act does it fall under, what is the exact form that needs to be filed, what are the timelines for it, and how to go about it. So imagine that level of detail in terms of monitoring that AI can bring in. And also, it can give early warning dashboards in case the plan is not going as per the agreed terms and conditions for the COC. Those the COC don't have to conduct multiple meetings, take stock of each and every minute detail in those meetings, which could or could not be discussed. Rather, it would be done simply by looking at a dashboard, which AI itself will update on a almost real-time basis. So that sort of information is powerful because if something is going here and there, the COC can very quickly say, okay, you know what, we need to address this right away. So the monitoring becomes more proactive than reactive. So that is the CIRP stage. I'm going to pause for a moment to ask if there are any questions here for just a bit, or we proceed to the liquidation stage. All right. So proceeding to the liquidation stage. In CIRP stage, a lot of the issues are handled. Coming to liquidation stage, the way AI can plug into it is a lot more different because liquidation is the last chance that the company has or the creditors have in recovering anything from this company, in making good of their losses in this company. So let's start with the procedural things. First is, let's look at the statistics. 79% of liquidations exceed the timeline. That's because there are frequent failed auctions. And that happens because the auction has conducted, okay, your first time you reduce it by 25%, next time by 10%, 10%, 10%, and somehow the value at which the asset is available and the value that the market expects never quite aligns. AI can help bridge this sort of a inefficiency by helping lenders and liquidators discover that value head on, or understand how far is the value that they are putting from the expected market values. Again, this will not be 100% accurate, but this would be a very good estimate backed by evidence. Let's speak of the technical major things where AI can help. Building the liquidation estate, the asset register. The liquidator's first job is to identify and take control of the corporate debtor's assets. Sounds simple, but in practice, it's very messy. Assets may be scattered across states, titles disputed, records outdated. AI can help you. Using entity matching algorithms, it can pull data from MCA filings, land registries, GST records to create a comprehensive asset register. Of course, here we are assuming that the AI is plugged into all of these public databases and it can access these public databases. And we're assuming that eventually regulatory oversight is going to give that sort of access to AI. It can flag discrepancies. For example, if an asset appears in balance sheet but is not in the registry data or vice versa. This gives a faster, cleaner start. But even assuming that it is not plugging into any registry so far, just making of that liquidation estate, making of that asset register itself can be a slightly more easier process when you employ AI to do it. Second, and the more meatier part of our presentation for liquidation is determination of valuation. Now, a valuer is appointed, two valuers are appointed again in liquidation if the value is more than 6 months old, and it is valued so that the recent valuation comes through. But most of the times, even after taking that step of again valuing the company may take at least 25, 35, 45% more reduction for it to get sold. That reflects that there is a disconnect between the way the assets are being valued and the way the market is valuing these assets. So, what AI can do here is it can look at the comparables, it can look at reserve price bands, it can look at demand estimations, look at sector information. For example, if it's steel and if it's steel is doing really good and we are selling a steel plant, then the chances that, okay, rather than reducing the reserve price by 10%, why don't you do it 5% and then wait? Or rather than 10%, why don't you, rather than 25%, maybe do it at a slightly lesser price? So, this sort of price information, this sort of decision guidance can be given by AI because it can look at recent sales of similar assets, it can adjust for market conditions, and it can highlight whether a valuation looks unusually low. It doesn't replace valuers, that is very clear, but it gives creditors an additional data point, a reason to question or confirm a valuation, because valuations are done with very stringent valuation standards. And most of the times, they are a very accurate representation of what the asset will fetch. But markets are very dynamic. The day the asset was valued and the day the asset is put up for sale, in between this time, a lot can elapse that can actually make the valuations not realized for creditors. And a lot of time is lost in this process. Even liquidation is supposed to be just a 1 year process. And if it really has to be completed in that 1 year, AI can really help in this case. Then we come to marketing of assets. This is again very similar to what we do in CIRP. There needs to be no difference in the way an asset is marketed under liquidation under CIRP, since selling of an asset as a going concern is a concept under IBC. But the process memorandum that we do, the auction process memorandum that we make, that as well can be automated with AI because the information that goes into it is not new. We've already generated all that information during CIRP. It's just put in a different format. It needs to have certain additional clauses. It needs to have certain additional terms and conditions depending on the way that the asset is being put for sale. And in fact, AI would go a step further and ensure that any recent changes in the law are also reflected in our process memorandum. And this site visit scheduling, dealing with investors, making sure their queries are heard, VDR management, all of that becomes automated. So not only does that take care of timelines, it also creates trails. There is very little chance that the IP will be questioned for propriety of how things were handled if there is a audit trail for everything electronically. Coming to before we move on to auction execution, I still want to speak a little bit more about bidder analytics and bidder search. There are a lot of companies that like to buy assets under liquidation, assets under CIRP, because one, the values are much more depressed, which means that the upside is way higher. Second, the clean slate approach. A lot of companies get sold with a lot of GST, a lot of statutory liability on them, but the investor gets it without all of that. And third, during in CIRP, it's the tax losses which drive that decision a lot of times. So investor interest in IBC is huge. And if you employ AI to go search for investors for a specific sector with precedents that say that, okay, they've invested in IBC, I don't think it would take you more than 20 minutes to arrive at a long list of investors. It's very low effort, high reward activity that should be done in all liquidations and CIRPs. Even if there's no software right now to help you with this, I would suggest that, and this works. Gemini and ChatGPT or any other LLM that you use internally or you're comfortable with can do this pretty well. The prompting for it and all is a iterative exercise that you will discover and you will figure out what brings out the best output. But just to say that it's possible and it should be explored. We move on to auction execution itself. Live bid analytics AI can sit alongside as an integrity tool. It can monitor bid patterns in real time. It can flag signs of collusion or abnormal behavior. It can analyze historical auction data to suggest reserve prices as well. So that's something that we have looked at. So the auctions become more transparent, more credible, less prone to manipulation. Um, and and it gives a more analysis heavy layer on top of bid auctions. So stakeholders are informed in real time of how things are happening. And in the end, of course, once assets are sold, the distribution comes, and AI can make it possible for the distribution to follow the waterfall mechanism. It can be as simple as entering the total uh, value that the bidder has given and just pressing one button. And that's it. AI can tell you creditor wise, entity wise, how much money needs to be paid out for each creditor. That sort of payout file and sensitivity analysis also can be done by AI, something that we do spend quite a bit of time today to accomplish. And while that is happening, AI can continue to pursue avoidance during liquidation as well. And it can continue to build evidence bundles for unresolved avoidance claims. And since NRRA sale is a concept under IBC, this will help build very robust case books. So the actual value that these avoidance litigations hold can also be displayed and can also be demonstrated very well to the investors and to other players as well. Litigation funding is picking up in India. And if litigation funding and avoidance applications can find an interface, I'm hoping that a lot of these cases do not have to stall liquidation progress just for the sake of avoidance applications which are pending in the courts. Needless to say, any drafting that needs to be done, any compilation that needs to be done, any formatting that needs to be done, AI can do it so much more faster and so much more better than we could ever hope to accomplish. So auto generation of quarterly reports, drafting of SEC notes, dissolution dossier compilation, all of these things AI can accomplish with alarming accuracy and alarming efficiency as well. It is, once you go AI, you will never go back. It is an absolute must in the toolkit of any modern professional. Then, but we have covered quite a bit on how AI can plug into CIRP and liquidation, and these are just our ideas. These are the ideas that we've had so far. These are the ideas that we can think so far. As professionals, we come across various ways that we can plug into every day, and there could be much more powerful applications of AI that the attendees today can think up of themselves. But before we go there, I want to very quickly cover how AI is being used in the way that we've mentioned in the last couple of minutes globally. So in UK Insolvency Service, AI actually was used by insolvency practitioners in um, building tools that automatically sift through company records, litigation, filings, spot red flags. In some restructuring cases, AI tools have been used to benchmark assumptions and turnaround plans against industry data. So what happened is a lot of COVID loans were given during in UK, and a lot of these companies were insolvent when these loans were given. But to make sure that this state of insolvency was due to force major events such as COVID and not due to a fraud, AI was used to spot patterns. AI is great at spotting patterns. So what's interesting here in UK is the regulator's approach. Rather than mandating AI, they've issued guidance on ethical use and professional accountability. The message is clear. AI is welcome, but the practitioner remains responsible. Even taking this softer approach to AI's applicability in India is a really, really good idea. Secondly, the European Union. The EU has gone one step further than UK. In EU, the proposed AI Act classifies use of AI in legal and financial systems as high risk. That means stricter standards of transparency, data, and governance and human oversight are needed. While it classifies it as high risk, the thing to consider here is that it's recognized in the legal and financial systems. So AI generated information, AI generated summaries can be used. It means that any AI used in insolvency or restructuring in Europe will need to be explained, will have to be auditable, will have to be compliant with data regulations like GDPR. For us in India, this is a useful lesson. If we want AI adoption to be trusted, we need similar guardrails. Australia also has been quite pragmatic. Their insolvency regulator has run pilots using AI to detect it phoenixing. Now, phoenixing is a case where directors shut down a company and then restart under a new name to avoid debts. They've given it a fancy name, but we just do it in India without a fancy name attached to it. So they've used AI to scan corporate registries, detect suspicious patterns of behavior. That's enforcement, that's not resolution, but it shows AI can shine a light where human supervision alone falls short. For us, during forensic audits, during due diligences, usually you see that if multiple companies, though not related on paper, have the same registered address, then that's a flag for us. But how much can a human scrape? AI scrapes large swathes of data within fractions of seconds. So that sort of efficiency is just extremely powerful. So I think at this point, we just have to look at how India can integrate AI into its fold. India has a challenge that most of its corporate India Inc. is not yet completely digitized. So the transition roadmap for us is how do we move from pilots and ideas to a structured roadmap? I'd suggest thinking in three horizons: the short term, the medium term, and the long term. Short term is first 1 to 2 years. First is digitize claims verification more deeply, integrate into NESL's role, give RPs AI dashboards. If that can be done, then we can move on to standardizing report formats so AI tools have clean data to work with. Third is pilot AI in auctions. Start with piloting AI in few e-auctions to test their efficacy, to test their pattern predicting powers. Then provide training for IPs on responsible AI use. Putting a prompt in ChatGPT asking, tell me other companies that have gone under insolvency in the power sector is not going to be as effective as training insolvency professionals in hard-coded prompting courses, hard-coded AI courses, teaching how AI actually works is going to be powerful. These are low-hanging fruits. They don't need new laws, just adoption and capacity building. Medium term, in the 3 to 5 years, once trust builds, we can go further. We have to develop AI-assisted IM preparation tools, integrate with MCA, IBPI, NESL databases. Second, we have to use AI for bidder screening under Section 29A, link with RBI and SEBI records. We also have to roll out AI-enabled monitoring of resolution plans so creditors can track compliance in real time. We also have to start beginning working on a regulatory sandbox where RPs and creditors can test AI tools under supervision without fear of liability, because the fear of liability keeps professionals away from testing anything that can expose them to any sort of an unknown. So that sort of impedes innovation. And since the users are going to be IPs, this sort of a protection has to be extended to IPs so that innovation can foster. This is the stage where we'll see AI become part of normal insolvency toolkit. But in the long term, in the next 5 to 10 years, we should have a national AI insolvency platform where filings should get integrated, claims and auctions and monitoring should get completely integrated. We should have predictive analytics for potential insolvencies early. Some banks do adopt it in staggered fashion. AI-assisted avoidance analytics as well, running continuously on transaction data to flag fraud. And eventually, AI could maybe draft routine applications as well. This isn't science fiction. Other countries are moving in this direction. And if we take careful steps, India can lead rather than follow. And that has been our growth story for the last 10 years. We have been looking to go from make in India to think in India, invent in India, make for the world, make for our friends. So that's where we are headed. I think with this, I'd like to hand it again to Ashish.
Yeah, thanks, Zeenath, for this detailed breakdown of the entire processes, comparison with the global scenario, and also laying down the roadmap. The road ahead seems very promising for sure, but at the same time, it may seem to be a bit daunting for professionals because it will alter dramatically the way things are being done now and how they will be done in the future. Now, again, coming back to that cliched question or concern, whether AI will replace professionals or whether AI will replace insolvency professional in the context of insolvency proceedings, answer is a resounding no, because human wisdom cannot be replaced. At best, AI will help in providing us the necessary clarity which will further human wisdom. Again, using another cliched expression that AI will not replace a professional. However, professionals who use AI will replace professionals who do not use AI, and that is going to be a fact. So, all of us who are not using AI will have to pull up our socks and do much better in terms of using AI as a tool to increase our productivity. What it means in terms of the expectation from the regulators or from the stakeholders is that they would expect a lot more from us, and AI will also boost our productivity. If, for example, I am handling two cases, I will be probably be able to handle more cases. So let's come to where we started from. The court promised speed, value, fairness, transparency. Today, the system is weighed down by delays, disputes, and distrust. Of course, the lawmakers and regulators are doing their bit, and they are coming up with amendments, tweaks, guidance, clarifications, circulars. But clearly, that will not be enough. AI will not change the law. It cannot resolve a case on its own, but it will give us sharper tools to act faster, to act in a more efficient manner, and to decide faster. If we adopt it responsibly with building in the required guardrails, what Zeenath had covered in detail, confidentiality, accuracy, fairness, accountability, insolvency in India will be transformed from a process which is currently being critiqued and associated with delays, losses, diminishing value. It will transform to one which would be associated with speed, clarity, transparency, and a higher recovery. Let me leave you with a thought. If we can achieve what we are set out to with using AI, then we will not only strengthen the insolvency code, we'll make ourselves as much better professionals who would take key decisions to protect interests of everyone and further everyone's interests. And we'll strengthen the trust in India's entire financial system and move faster towards India's goal of achieving the status of a developed nation. And we'll make IBC and India great again. Thank you. So I think with this, we are at the end of our presentation. Zeenath, I'm not sure if you mentioned the whether
Yeah.
how you had made this presentation
Yes,
and using AI. So you want to
that's right.
probably talk about that.
Sir, will you please this presentation to we participants?
Yes, sir. Sir, as
Sure.
a practice, we send it to ICSI, IPA, and then
Okay.
they disseminate it further.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
So just to mention, the entire presentation was made with the help of AI. To be clear, the content that was put into it was entirely content that was entirely made by us. But the formatting, what pictures to put, where to put what kind of text, where to put what kind of color. Of course, these are our firm colors, but just to make that formatting, the content was put into the AI presentation maker, and the presentation was made within 5 minutes. So that is the power of AI that can be leveraged. As long as we are professionals, our job is to think. Our job is not to select which color will look good, which font will look good, what is should be the size of the font, what picture to put. So hopefully AI can take care of all of that for us.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for a
Yeah.
patient hearing. And in case there are any questions, we can take them.
Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes, Puneet. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
we can hear
yeah.
you.
So I
Yes.
have one small query. Yeah, yeah. So I have one small query. When we talk of AI, so does that mean we are talking of taking help of ChatGPT only, or some other platform also? I'm not sure on that. How
So,
uh,
Puneet,
like
while
AI
I'll
will
get
help? How we have to like? Yeah.
sorry. So just to say that I have understood the question correctly, you are saying that when we talk of AI, are we only referring to say Chat GPT or Perplexity or a Gemini, right? That is the question. Or does it go
That,
beyond that? Does
yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
AI, I think in its most basic form, will do drafting for you. But that is just, if I have to say, in terms of the level of competence from 1 to 100, that is probably at 1 only. There are probably 100 more things which AI can do. And this is just the preliminary or the rudimentary thing that AI can help us do, is to say draft emails or draft some applications, summarize things. Zeenath, you want to elaborate on this?
Yeah. So, what ChatGPT is, Gemini is, Claude, Grok, all of these are foundational models. Basically, they are separate LLMs by themselves. And they are, imagine they are Flipkart, they're Amazon, so they are separate by themselves. But the kind of wrappers you can put on it, the kind of programs that you can write with it, if this interests you, then maybe you should also look up something called vibe coding. It is now possible to make programs of your own with the help of AI. So AI itself can give you some output, but what you do with that output is way more powerful. Um, so India is also building its own foundational models. So the model doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what matters is, are you what is your workflow that you're trying to automate? What are you trying to achieve with AI? Now with agentic AI can actually go to a platform, book a ticket for you with just one prompt. So basically, it can open a website for you. It can do the clicks. It can basically act as your agent. So agentic AI is the next big thing in how AI is going to perform. So the sky is the limit here with respect to how to use AI. ChatGPT is a great AI if you're just starting out with AI. It's a great LLM. It is, if you have the pro version, then ChatGPT 5 is absolutely brilliant. Uh, just play with it for some time, ask it some queries, it will surprise you.
Efficacy of a tool like ChatGPT comes from how you frame the questions, what are the prompts that you give. And it is not just a simple question and answer like we used to do when we used to do a Google search, where we just put a question and then there are 10. You have to keep asking. So you treat the AI like a human being and keep asking them. Like you have your assistant, you'll ask him question, he'll give you something. Then you'll ask him to improve upon that. If there are certain clarifications required, you can ask that, and you can ask AI to redo the things in a particular manner if you're not satisfied. So all those things are now possible. And as Zeenath elaborated all these steps, step by step, she went into CIP, liquidation, everything is possible. You can make your own programs, and now going forward, I am sure there will be softwares available using AI or AI tools available, which would be created by some people for insolvency. Not everyone needs to create his own tool. There would be things which would be available on a paid subscription basis, and that should help all the professionals. So, Puneet, hope we have covered what you had asked, adequately covered that.
Yes, sir. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
welcome. Just to check if there are any other questions, or else we can call this session to a close. All right then. Thank you so much for this for attending this session. Wish you all have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
रिकॉर्ड तो हो रही है इतना वॉल्यूम बढ़ा
यहाँ से
हम 4 बजे के बाद से